Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will now ask Mr. Martin Speckerfield, student at Sri Chin Boy and member of the Ipswich Hindu Shramajay and Suffolk Interfaith Resource, to open proceedings.
Thank you. Wonderful Mayor, Councillor Dorkington, Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me, and congratulations, Mayor, getting that all out. Quite a mouthful. Probably most of you know that this week now is Interfaith Week, and all up and down the country, people are having to live between the various faiths. It's about the sixth one that have been emanating really with government encouragement. And I thought I'd just mention really how remarkable actually this has been since the beginning of the Mayor's Civic Celebration in 1980. That really was a pathfinder, an interfaith service that started in 1980. Because I came up in 1972, and at that time there were certainly religions who wouldn't go into the same room as other religions. And I well remember in the early 80s, after one or two of the, first or second of the Mayor's Civic Celebrations, one poor representative of the town centre churches had to get up and say on behalf of the church, I'm really sorry, but actually we don't want to come along to the same church with other people, rather we'd like to come to a parlour and have your tea and biscuits afterwards. Well, now things have gone enormously. You know, we have 4 mosques, we have 2 gurdwaras, Sikh temples, we have a Buddhist temple, we have a Hindu temple, of course many Christian churches and meeting places. And the development we've seen in Ipswich, I think, is well above average for towns in the UK, and probably also abroad. It's extraordinary because the continent, there just hasn't been anywhere near the interfaith development we have. Anything really outside the Christian ambit, in places like Germany and France, very, very difficult. Of course, in Russia, there was bans on many of the well-known Christian groups, Buddhists and so on. So we have seen actually a fairly dramatic increase. And as I say, it really was actually compounded by the Mayor in 1980. What I'd like to do is just give you a short prayer, which was actually given by Swami Vivekananda. He's actually the Hindu monk and mystic who took Hinduism really to the West. And in line really with the philosophy, Hindu philosophy, that all paths lead to God, is my own teacher's definition of religions, rather than having the competitiveness that's been such a problem amongst religions for so many years. He said that really each religion is a beautiful, powerful and fruitful branch of God's life tree. And really there is only one religion, that is the love of God. Well, Swami Vivekananda says the same sort of thing. I mean, this is his short prayer that he delivered in 1893 to the Parliament of Religions when it inaugurated in September. As the different streams, having their sources in different places, all mingle their waters in the sea, so, O Lord, the different faiths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee. Mr. Mayor, Councillors, thank you very much for having me. I've been fruitful and progressive meeting.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting may be filmed and photographed. Also, can I remind everyone who has a mobile phone that it should be switched to silent mode whilst the meeting is in progress. We move to agenda item number 1. I've received apologies from Councillor Goldsmith, Councillor Leader, and Councillor Whittle. Are there any others? Thank you. Agenda item number 2. May I sign the unconfirmed minutes of the council meeting held on 17th September 2014 as 2 records?
Can I just point out that on page 4, the voting that was recorded, you have Councillor French voting for and against. I know the Liberals do have a bit of a problem making their mind that sometimes, they're allowed for it, but I'm sure they can vote it.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, order of business. Please note that agenda item number 9 was withdrawn prior to the meeting as per the revised agenda in the table of papers. Are there any other changes to the order of business as printed in the revised agenda? We then move to agenda item number 4. Directing declaration of interest. In accordance with the delegated authority, the monitoring officer has granted dispensation to all members in respect of agenda item number 7, and members are therefore not required to exclude themselves from the meeting and may participate in the debate and vote on item 7. The monitoring officer considered that this is in the public interest to grant dispensation to enable members to participate and vote on council business, and that the benefit of the members representing their communities on matters covered in the report outweighs the perceived risk that members might place undue weight on their own personal disposable pecuniary interests in business referred to in agenda item number 7. Are there any councillors who wish to declare interest in any other items of business on the revised agenda? We now move to agenda item number 5, Mayor's Communications. Mayor's communications are before you this evening. There are just 3 that I would like to highlight. The first one is the multi-faith civic celebration of communities at Ipswich Church on Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. You are all welcome. Also, on the 26th of November, which is next Wednesday, a Taste of Suffolk charity dinner at Shelley's Restaurant, New College, Suffolk New College, is £50 per head. If anybody would like to come, would you please let us know by midday tomorrow. And lastly but not least, I'm sure you're aware, you've probably heard anyway, that the HMS Corps is coming to Ipswich and there will be a parade through the town Sunday week. Again, all welcome. We move to agenda item number 6, questions. I please remind people that supplementary questions must relate to the original question and not preceded by a statement. Could I ask all members of the public who are asking questions to please use the table and at the front of the meeting, which is over there. Question number 1. Councillor Carnes, Councillor Jones. Councillor Carnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, as Councillor Jones, think that 12,500 new jobs will be created in Ipswich by 2031, as set out in the draft local plan.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think jobs will come from the sectors that are already strong in Ipswich and are highlighted for growth in the future in New Anglia-Leb's strategic growth plan, such as finance and insurance, advanced manufacturing in Futura Park, where land has already been allocated for that sector. We're getting inquiries as the economy seems to be picking up. The digital, cultural and creative sector, we have aspirations for an innovation centre to which we've allocated funding, and we're working with the county and the LEC and UCS on. Life sciences and biotechnology coming out of UCS, and the energy sector and ports. These are the sectors where we would expect to find growth and jobs. I would also add that we have a growing young population and a growing elderly population, and I would expect jobs to grow in response to those demographics. And I will add finally that I also hope that the public sector will remain a strong presence in Ipswich, as it's hugely important to the well-being of the citizens of this town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased that Councillor Jones agrees that the economy is picking up. May I ask her, please, does she agree with me that by voting against the planning applications that would have created 300 new jobs at Morrison's on the Sandhenge Retail Park, and the 900 jobs that would have been created by Tesco's at Grafton Way, this administration is giving a message to private companies that Ipswich is not open for business?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely disagree with Councillor Carnell. Those jobs, jobs in large supermarkets, will come to large supermarkets wherever they are sited, and the locations to which he refers, Morrison's, in an out-of-town location with no other benefits to anybody but to Morrison's, and I assume to B&Q, and Tesco in a location where it would threaten the viability of town centre businesses, were entirely wrong. If they choose to locate themselves and apply for planning permission in sites allocated for uses which they wish to carry out, that is fine, and I would expect to support them. But in the applications that they made, I absolutely did not.
Thank you. Question number 2. Councillor Carroll to Councillor Cook. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In setting the strategy for the council tax in the next financial year, does the portfolio holder intend to follow Ed Ball's view, expressed in a national newspaper on the 2nd of August, that people, I quote, rightly feel that they pay too much tax already? Close the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, of course, who wouldn't want to pay less tax? But of course, the thing is, that's not all that people want. It's a bit more complicated than that. They have obviously a variety of wants and needs. Those things often conflict with one another, as well as wishing to pay as little tax as possible. People also value and want to protect the high quality public services that this authority provides today. And the thing that makes politics interesting and challenging is that we've got to balance those conflicting demands. It's not a one-dimensional equation that we have to solve here. So we will be taking that into account. We'll also be taking into account the need to protect frontline services and to keep council tax as low as possible, consistent with that aim. And I think our electoral success demonstrates that we've been getting that balance right over the last few years.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask Councillor Cook to think again and take this opportunity to say to the hard-pressed council taxpayers of Ipswich that council tax next year will be frozen or even reduced, following up the unnecessary increases that we've had over the past 2 years. And I'm also advocating that the acts in line with the advice of his own shadow chancellor.
Councillor Cook.
Yeah, I'm struggling to discern the question in that, Mr. Mayor, but I mean, I'm not quite clear what Councillor Carnell and his group's own view is on this. I mean, when we had a similar discussion this time last year, there was some conflicting views, I think, within the Conservative group as to whether council tax should be frozen or not. And my memory was that Councillor Carnell didn't vote in favour of the proposal for that Councillor Stewart put forward at the time. Freezing council tax is certainly not an easy option when we have ever increasing resources coming from central government and the need to sort of maintain and protect essential frontline services.
Thank you. Question number 3 is a question from Councillor Getty to Councillor Smart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the administration consider free parking on Sundays to encourage more shoppers into the town centre, which in turn might encourage smaller shops to feel that it's worthwhile to open them at night?
Thank you. Councillor Smart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council already provides a range of parking promotions to encourage people to visit Ipswich, including the £1 an hour and the popular quids in after 3 p.m. Monday to Friday. And in collaboration with the Suffolk County Council, we're also providing free Sunday park and ride services for the remainder of the year from November the 16th. I think it's important that the Council can measure the success of transport promotions and ticket sales and provide useful data. It's difficult to measure the take-up of various promotions otherwise. I think it's also worth pointing out that the revenue from parking is also important to the Council to support the provision of the services it provides. And certainly some of the money that we get from our car park income will be reinvested in improving the standard of car parking, notably the resurfacing of Brown Street, which is due in the spring of next year. Obviously, we didn't collect that revenue. Either that would be done, or there'd be more pressure on the council tax that the previous questioner referred to. I'd also just like to remind Councillor Debenham that many of the parking restrictions that exist during the week apply to Mondays to Saturdays only, and therefore there is additional on-street parking available fairly close to the town centre on Sundays, so that is yet another alternative that does not apply during the week.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Whilst appreciating the fact that the council needs the revenue and the fact that shopping habits have changed, surely providing free parking or an attraction to actually get people into the town centre would see more businesses maybe spring up and less shut down.
I think that Councillor Debenham's question particularly as it relates to smaller businesses. Whilst the larger stores can staff up their stores in such a way that they can have various rotating shifts so that people work 6 days, but not always the same 6 days to ensure that the 7th is covered. Maybe the small business, or the sole proprietor, actually fancies a day off during the week, which they otherwise wouldn't have. I don't know what the situation is with your own business, Councillor Debenham, but I rather suspect that the free parking in Cliff Lane has probably got little to do with any decisions that you make about your opening hours.
Thank you. Question number 4 is from Councillor Stroke, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is happening with the updated tourism strategy? The last one expired in 2010.
Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, for the past 18 months, the County Council and all the District Councils have been collaborating on a joint tourism strategy for Suffolk, which is due for completion before Christmas. The creation of this joint strategy is part of the Visit Suffolk contract, to which all of the Suffolk councils contribute.
Thank you. Councillor Stroke, yes, supplementary. Thank you. We'll move to question number 5, which is from Councillor Stroke, Councillor Jones.
Councillor Jones, how did the URL visitipswich.com end up being part of the bid, including auto redirecting
to allaboutipswich.com and what's the process for it? Anthony Jones.
Chair, I'm going to give a technical answer now. The decision to merge tourism promotions around a single website rather than several websites was taken following consultation with stakeholders during the first 5-year term of the Ipswich Central Business Improvement District. Terms are included in the operating agreement with Ipswich Central Management within for their second term.
Thank you.
So what's technical? Can the portfolio holder please clarify, does the IBC still own the website Visit Ipswich?
Chair, I will have to check that, I think. I would like to say yes or no for definite. But I'll check.
Thank you. We now move to question number 6, and to Councillor Phillips, Councillor Smart.
Hey, Listener. Regarding weed and collections, please can you advise what the cost implications are of having to make return visits to whole streets or individual houses when these are missed or not emptied properly? And please clarify how often areas or individual bins are not emptied properly and require a return visit.
Councillor Smart.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's sort of two parts to that question. If we can deal first of all with the question of cost. Crews operate on a task and finish basis, and the collection of missed bins forms part of that total staff, administrative and vehicle costs for the service. So when a bin is missed and someone has to go back, it doesn't actually count against the total cost of the service for actually collecting the bin. The cost that arise, some arise, rather depends on the way in which the missed bin is recorded or reported to the council. Apparently, if this is done by telephone, there is a sum of £5 that is incurred in cost for dealing with the phone call. But if you wanted to report your bin online, apparently this falls to 17 pence. Quite rightly so. Will always remain a mystery to me, just in case you want a supplementary question. On the question of the how often areas or individual bins are not emptied properly, for the financial year to date, which is the first 2 quarters, 470 bins have been recorded as missed in these first 2 quarters. Now, this equates to quite a vanishingly small proportion, like 0.048%, or if you like, fewer than 1 in 2,000 bins for the sum 980,000 bins collected each quarter. Now, it might also interest you, it's a bit of supplementary information, that we can actually record when a bin is not left out to prove whether the fact that it wasn't collected is the fault of the bin staff or the householder. Because we have apparently some in-cab technology to record bins which have not been placed out for collection to those households who put their bins out. If bins are recorded as not out, crews are not asked to collect them later on. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that information. In view of the ability to recycle more rubbish out, straight from your toilets, black bins will become lighter. So would you consider sort of requesting to the crews on the street that they can sort of carry out a quick visual check of the black bins to make sure they're empty? Thank you. Yes, that's smart.
I think even the small visual check is still, when you multiply it by the number of bins that are put out, is something that would still add significantly to the cost of the service. You are aware that we've been through a reorganisation of the bin collection on a 4-day-a-week basis. We are trying to use both the vehicles and the crews that we have as efficiently as we possibly can, which I'm sure is something we'll agree with. So, as regards that, I think that would be something that I'd probably recommend.
Thank you. Question number 7. Councillor Phillips, Councillor Mould.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the Labour administration agree with the residents that they did not consult comprehensively enough on the Ravenswood development? Thank you.
Councillor Mould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Phillips. We consider that the consultation was appropriate as far as the Ravenswood development is concerned.
Yes, thank you. Well, all of us in this fight have to spoke to many of the residents there, and they would really want to know what lessons would or has the administration learned from this situation, and what lessons they could still put into practice for any future proposals to avoid the very difficult emotions which the residents of that state are being through.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm sure that as applies to any other policy and practice of the council, these things are kept under review. But so far as the consultation with regard to the recent development at Ravenswood is concerned, and I would assume that this is the one that's being referred to, although it's not specific, I can assure people who weren't aware, although I believe people will be, that there has been more consultation with regard to this particular aspect than any other that I can remember. And of course, the planning application has not yet been considered. I think that's coming up later this month, and therefore there will be other observations and comments made, presumably, at that time.
Thank you. Question number 8 for Councillor Jensen.
Will the leader of the council, when will the leader of the council step down to focus on the general election campaign?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I make a decision, I'll be sure to let council change it.
Does the leader of the council not feel that what we all know about campaigning 6 months towards the general election, how much energy it saps from you, that this will take away from his duties as the leader, and perhaps maybe you take his eye off the ball in those duties?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been both leader of Ipswich Borough Council and prospective parliamentary candidate for Ipswich since September 2011. During that time, the council I lead has protected frontline council services. We've become an accredited living wage employer. We've attracted tens of millions of pounds of inward investment. We've agreed more compulsory purchases on empty homes in the last 3 years than in the previous 30. We've started building council houses for the first time in a generation. In that time, we've increased the Labour majority on the council each year and now hold more than 2/3 of the seats. If rumours are to be...
He's not answering the questions, he's not mentioning. He's got he wants his head to sell himself to the electorate. I want an answer as to whether he thinks he'll have enough time. That's outrageous.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Chenchy claimed that you could see into the future previously. It wouldn't take a 5-year-old to predict what sort of answer I was going to give. So, Mr. Mayor, we've got more than 2/3 of the seats on the council, and if rumours are to be believed, there are now more Labour councillors in Ipswich than there are Conservative Party members. We've seen off 3 different leaders of the Conservative group, and in the recent Ashcroft general election opinion poll conducted in Ipswich, Labour was 8% ahead of the Conservatives. Councillor Chenchy, on the other hand, leads a Conservative group that doesn't even have the basic level of competence necessary to get a motion onto tonight's agenda. So, Mr. Mayor, I do wonder why Councillor Chenchy feels she's suitably qualified to dispense leadership advice.
We move to agenda item number 9, which is Councillor Jensen, Councillor Baker.
I just want you to have the opportunity to get out of the way nice and early. Okay. What is being considered for next year's beer festival to ensure that this year's large loss is not included? Back to you, stuff.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Beer festivals form part of the Ipswich Maritime Festival since its inception in 2011, helping to attract up to 70,000 visitors over the long weekend of the festival and forming part of the celebration of Ipswich. The events programme, including this year's beer festival, are an investment in Ipswich, supporting businesses and tourism. And for the wider Maritime Festival, the Council will work with Ipswich Central and businesses to make the waterfront activities part of the annual Celebrate Ipswich week of activity across the town. The major events programme has a net cost to the Council of £120,000 after income and sponsorship. The programme generated over 300,000 visitors last year, representing some £5 million of additional visitor spend. The Maritime Festival accounted for £1.65 million of that spend. The programme is estimated to have supported more than 135 full-time equivalent jobs in the tourism, hospitality and retail sectors. The net cost of the beer festival is therefore not a loss. The Council continues to seek to minimise the net cost of the events programme, and as with all events, the successes and challenges of the beer festival have been reviewed and will be announced in the 2015 programme shortly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Wow, we're in a hurry. Could I have that in writing, please? Of course. Thank you.
Question number 10 is the hour to Councillor Bowles.
In regards to the approved list of contractors, maintenance contracts, what avoidance measures are in place to stop the setup from being abused?
Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Elgar. Under contract standing orders contained within the Council's constitution, the Council can authorise the use of an approved list. To ensure the system is not abused, there are rigorous processes in place to ensure no person or organisation can be entered onto an approved list until there has been adequate investigation into both their financial and technical ability to perform the type of work to be included in any individual contract. Approved lists are not used for any high value procurement, as this would be subject to a separate open tendering exercise.
Okay, so can you clarify that? Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah. Can you actually clarify that the tendering process, the safeguards are in so that those who have got contracts for proper tender would not be automatically funded rather than actually go through the tendering process again. So basically, if you get the contract for one, you get it for that's basically what is there still funding there? Sorry, I couldn't. I've had a piece what I'm saying, if someone gets a contract for one job, that there is safeguards to stop them from being, because they're on the approved list, they're not going to be kind of like automatically given the post, basically.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I don't think I can attempt to reply in detail, but I do appreciate the concern, and I have to say that the tendering process involved with any council and any public body is a matter of extreme importance. I think and hope that I will be able to assure Mr. Elgar that everything and all precautions are taken to ensure that there is no problem with regard to the way that contracts are awarded, and there's no automatic right in respect of anything like this. I say that I would be reluctant to try to go into detail because councillors as such don't get involved in this exercise, but a number of officers do. For instance, when the last report went to executive about list of the tendered list, there were, I think, I'm right in saying, 8 or 9 chief or main officers of this council who were consulted on it. So there's a lot of safeguards there. I appreciate that that may not be completely satisfactory to Mr. Algar. I think it would be better if he were to pursue this either directly with the council or with me afterwards. Thank you. You can't hear you at all.
Okay, sorry, probably turned myself off. Could the leader of the council update us on where IBC is at regarding the funding strategy for the revamp of the Cornhill turned into firm commitments for the funding, and when is the leader hoping the revamp will take place?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Cornhill project is a partnership project involving the public and the private sector, specifically the Borough Council, the County Council and Ipswich Central, with support also being provided by the University of Suffolk and Birmingham MP. This council has already committed to fund 25% of the project within its capital programme in accordance with the funding split that the partnership agreed. I am hopeful that Suffolk County Council will commit their 25% of the funding shortly. Thereafter, we will work on the other half, which is due to come from the private sector via the leadership of Ipswich Central and regional or national grants via the left or government. I would hope that the remaining funding will be secured next year and that works could start in 2016. Prior to any work taking place in Cornhill, we do need the works proposed for Queen Street and Princes Street to be completed. In particular, we need Queen Street to be fully pedestrianised. This is something that the Borough and Ipswich Central are continuing to press the County Council to deliver, but as Councillor Lockington will be well aware, there are significant delays to the travel to scheme.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me now? When Ipswich have the budget together, do you have them to go with what was chosen at the time, or will there be a chance to have a relook on whether the scheme that was sort of chosen is still the right one for Ipswich?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we went through the design competition to pick the architects and their preferred design for the scheme. We would anticipate that as a base design, but we certainly anticipate that there would be a significant amount of public involvement and consultation before any final scheme was committed to.
That concludes agenda item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the latest stage in the local plan cycle. Briefly, the inspection of the previous administration's local plan in 2011 found it sound, but required the council to carry out a review. And this is the document after part of that review is carried forward. The document itself is in two main parts: the core strategy and development policies outlined in section 3 of the report, and the site allocations outlined in section 4, and then in the appendices. As members will be aware, it has already been out to consultation once, in January to March of this year, and appendices 3 and 4 contain the representations made and our officers' responses to them. And obviously it's a very weighty document. I will simply point to a few of the items within it, particularly changes. Some changes we're proposing in this document are a response to the first consultation, for example, the allocation of the land at River Hill for a gypsy and traveller site. There were objections. We reassessed the situation and removed that allocation. Some policies have been merged. Some policies have altered simply because we've updated our evidence base or because circumstances have changed. For example, the original 2011 requirement of master plan of open fringe sites has been removed because it's been done. However, local policies, as we have in this document, are always determined by national policy. And some of the changes in our document have occurred following the introduction of the government's national planning policy framework. And members will note in particular that our affordable housing and sustainable construction policies have changed. And in my view, both have been weakened by our obligations to fall into line with national policy. In affordable housing, the NPPF gives greater importance to developers' viability arguments. See para 173, if you want to check, as I did. And so we had consultants carry out a whole plan viability assessment in the light of the changes in national policy. And as a result, we had to lower our affordable housing requirement for all sites across the borough, except in the Ipswich Garden suburb, which was assessed separately, from 35% to 15%. And this is obviously very disappointing, Mr. Mayor. But it does, I think, highlight the importance of the Council's own house building programme in going some way to making up that deficit. Policy DM1 on sustainable construction means that we will not now be able to require developers to build to the code of sustainable homes levels 5 and 6 on large applications, mainly because in 2015 the government plans to prevent local councils, including any planning condition, requiring a developer to build beyond level 4, and that I think also is regrettable. I'll make a couple of points about the town centre. Town centres everywhere are changing, they're in a period of transition, and Ipswich is no exception. So I will note the allocation of the Westgate site for retail-led use in the light of the most recent retail study by DTZ, and a recognition that throughout the central area, the IP1 area of the town, we'll expect a wider mix of uses than previously. For example, we see the shift to far more residential in the allocation of the Winterwater site, the eastern section of that site. The waterfront continues to be a focus for regeneration. Our policy states that we would welcome conference and exhibition space on the waterfront. I'm sure that is an aspiration shared by everyone here. Mr. Mayor, this is a consultation document. It will be coming back to Council. We're proposing a consultation period of 12 weeks, which is double the mandatory 6 weeks, beginning December 12th and continuing to March 5th. So there is plenty of time for people to look at the document, see what they think, and to get back to the Council with any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to be able to second the report before us this evening. And I'd like to start by actually thanking the planning department team within Ipswich Borough Council for the tremendous amount of work they've done over what seems to be an awful long period of time to produce the document we have before us today. It's no easy task, and I know it's been quite challenging for all those people involved. But I think they've won the prize for producing the biggest report that we've ever seen in the council, so big up to them. But this document is particularly important because it shows, I think, by the level of interest that came back in terms of the previous consultation, that there were several responses to points and aspects within the report itself. And despite what people may think, they are not all negative. There were some good positive responses that came back. And where possible, the officers have taken account of some of the comments that have been made and those changes have been made in some areas. Mr. Mayor, I did notice that it said this was to the year 2031. Bearing in mind that I was actively involved in the last published local plan, I'm not quite sure what my position might be coming in 2031. Never mind. In the meantime, this particular document will be very, very useful in terms of determining planning applications through the process that we use at the moment. It's quite clear that while we're in this interim period, it's been quite difficult sometimes to make a firm and fast decision in terms of planning applications, with knowing that there is this particular aspect of an appeal process sitting somewhere whereby we need to actually have some firm evidence to be able to support what our decisions might be. This document will give us that precise detail that we need to be able to do that. And I'm also hoping that when we've gone through this consultation process, we then finish up with a document which will be well examined and give us good evidence when it actually goes before the inspectors that will put this plan under scrutiny. Mr. Mayor, it's not just about the large scale sites. This document will help us to deal with some of the smaller aspects that we get in terms of determining, and I think sometimes that side of it is a problem. But if you look at the number of planning applications, for example, that we currently have to deal with now, many of which are dealt with under delegated powers, still need a document of this nature to make the determination. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm more than happy to second this report. Thank you.
Now, before I start, first we'd like to ask the recommendations to be taken separately for vote. First of all, I'd like to brief Councillor Gardner about the report. It's very comprehensive. I've been told it weighs 1.6 kilos, so that shows the size of this document, so well done for everybody involved. Although we agree with the recommendation in 16.1 that this be sent out to consultation, we would ask that it goes beyond the legal requirements of the statement of community involvement. And as I did executive, ask that we are proactive in helping us to reach a wide audience. As Councillor Phillips alluded to, we need to learn lessons from Ravenswood, and what we might think is a good consultation, we need to understand that perhaps it should go further than our legal requirements, or what we think is acceptable. And at executive, I ask that schools, especially sixth formers, other focus groups, be asked to contribute to pertinent parts of the report, even if we dissect it and just send special bits that are pertinent to them, and that we proactively seek residents to attend public meetings, not just expect them to turn up. This is a huge and important document that is rich and has far-reaching implications, and it must be treated as such. So I would like to ask Councillor Jones to introduce us up for an update on these investments. We will not be agreeing to recommendation 16.2. At the last executive, I gave examples of policy that the Conservative group do not agree with, for example, the two-tier social housing, and there are others we will wish to comment on. We also feel that there are many unanswered questions, for example, around housing targets, job targets, and we cannot agree to this recommendation because we also feel that this administration is trying to push through the plan before full consultation has taken place. The Ipswich Conservative Group will be submitting a written response to the consultation and look forward to the full debate that will take place when the document returns to the full council following the reference. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo Councillor Gardner's comments about how well the panels have done bringing this document together. It is a very long process, and it's very difficult to do, and it's very difficult to produce a document that's contradictory sometimes in it. It would be unsurprising to everybody to know that the Liberal Democrat Group will not be supporting this document. We have no clinical principle of consultation, of course, we have a problem with some of the content here, although I must say, in terms of the number of words, it's a small number. However, that doesn't mean to say it's not a big issue. And that issue is around the transport. To reflect comments I made in the last council meeting. If you wish, you can turn to page 133, or you can just listen to me, or do something else. But members will recall that I mentioned there was an issue I think regarding the site policy regarding the suburbs and the word sustainable, and that the council had decided that the end development of the Ipswich Garden suburbs was sustainable, and I said that quite clearly in the last meeting. I don't want to go back over that, but since then there's been a council report, and that report looks actually the traffic impact of the Ipswich Garden suburb to 2031, and it's in the nature of doing these local plans that you do need to take into effect the effect to Borough and the effect at the end of the plan period being 2031, and that report stated that the result of the extra traffic due to Borough, what I was thinking of the Northern Fringe, to be honest, is that on Valley Road, straight to Colchester Road, for example, journey times have increased by 30 minutes. Now, it depends, of course, where you're starting off your journey, either on the Valley Road or Colchester Road, or going into Valley Road or Colchester Road. But at the moment, I think you'd be hard-pressed if you were travelling from Woodbridge Road east to Norwich Road, via Valley Road and Colchester Road, so within 15 minutes of the road. So the effect of these proposals is, and the lack of mitigation of traffic in them, is that your journey time across town that way will be increased by 3 times, rather 2 times. That's the net effect. So your journey will be 3 times longer. But the effect's not only there, because if you look down towards the waterfront, the effect there is 27 minutes, because the traffic still has to get onto the roads and the capacity is taken up by roads elsewhere in Ipswich. So in 2031, your journey through Ipswich town centre will be increased by 27 minutes. Now, if you actually have turned to page 133, I want you to remember what I said last time, the local plan to promote sustainable growth. Section A, under transport and access, that any development should not result in significant adverse impact on rights of way or local narrow areas in respect of traffic capacity. Now, I guess it comes down to what you mean by significant. At the end of the day, that's what the lawyers are going to be, and by the way, the lawyers are going to love this, absolutely love this. I would suggest that a lengthening your journey across Ipswich by at least 2 times, if not in total 3 times, is significant. Presumably the Labour Group and the Labour administration doesn't think it's significant. We do, and we're not voting for this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think as we tried to convey at the last meeting when we were discussing the Northern Fringe master plan, the way in which sustainability is viewed is to think that if you were to build a similar number of houses, but not on the Northern Fringe, and they were scattered all around the villages around Suffolk, they would still generate the same number of journeys that would be generated by the same number of houses on the Northern Fringe, unless you were able to, as I think Councillor Can pointed out, mitigate in some way. Now, it is easier to mitigate by means of things like bus lanes, cycle lanes, and that kind of stuff. In a single site like the Northern Fringe, and therefore reduce the impact of traffic, than it is if the same volume of houses were built on a more random street plan. The fact that Suffolk County Council have decided to propose not the master plan, but an application by a developer that was judged against the master plan, actually shows that the system works. Had we not adopted a master plan, all that Suffolk County Council would have been able to do would have been to judge a single application for, I forget what it is, about 70 homes or something, with an outline for a further few hundred, as a single application, rather than view it in the context of it being a development over a much bigger area for 3,000. And therefore, the infrastructure delivery plan that the developers are supposed to sign up to is of that much more importance, and the infrastructure that is required of a given development within a given part of that site is much greater than if it was considered just in isolation. Clearly, this document we are approving for further consultation, and therefore I can't quite follow Councillor Chench's point about there not being adequate consultation up to now, because this is a document which is approved. We are not adopting something tonight, we're not adopting a final plan, this is approval for consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Smart has covered right adequately on the notices.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I find the opposition's comments on planning, I found them astonishing last time, and I find them astonishing this time. They seem to have an absolute failure to understand the need for adopted planning policy. Our officers, Councillor Chenchi, are absolutely excellent at public consultation. The government's own advisory team for large applications commended in lavish terms their public engagement strategy after the very lengthy Northern Fringe document was drawn up over 2 years. So I don't think they need any lessons from you. And it's absolute nonsense. We're pushing through this plan. This has been in the works for ever since 2011. It was adopted. We were there. We just taken control. It was examined. It was adopted, and then we began the review. It's already been out for consultation once this year, and we now have it coming to the council in order to approve. It's going out for a consultation period, which is double the statutory length required. I think it's worth also giving some background on what a local plan actually is, because it was clear to me, as Councillor Smart has pointed out, that Councillor Can's comments were perhaps appropriate to a planning application, but not to the local plan, which is a different thing altogether. A council's local plan is central to planning and development, and before we can use any of the policies and the site allocations within it, it goes before a government planning perspective to be tested. And this is where we are halfway through this process. And the test is the plan sound. So I will explain what that means. What it means is that we need to demonstrate that our policies and our allocations are underpinned by an evidence base that is robust and will stand up to scrutiny and questioning at examination. Now, Councillor Chenchi at Executive suggested that instead of having a 35% for the Northern Fringe affordable housing quota and 15% more everywhere else, we should just decide to make up our own number, and the 25% would be quite nice. But that won't do. Our figures have to be based on independent assessments, and our affordable housing percentages are based on assessment carried out by an independent planning consultant. And his assessment is based on the government's national planning policy framework. Our employment figures are based on the East of England forecasting model that every other local authority in Suffolk and our own LEP uses in order to come up with figures that we will put into our plan. Now, obviously, we might wish these were different, but we might wish that our 15% were higher. We undoubtedly do. But we can't make up any figure we would like. We would lose, we would have our local plan turned down to examination, and in the meantime, be taken to the cleaners by any developer whose application we turned down. And by the time our plan goes forward to examination, it will also have been tested through extensive consultation, as I pointed out. So that is another way of demonstrating its robustness. I really think we need some training of a very basic level on planning. Chair, I find the kind of comments that have come forward this time and the last time have just, take my breath away. I would ask members to support the recommendations, and I'm sure the opposition aren't.
Those in favour, please say. Those against. 16.2. Those in favour, please say. Those against. 16.3. Those in favour. Those against. Thank you very much. Then move to agenda item number 8,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I report twice a year to Council on Treasury Management Performance Matters. This report covers the half year from the 1st of April to the 30th of September, follows on from the full year report that we had at the last meeting in September. This is the first such report that I've presented on this subject that doesn't mention the financially disastrous Icelandic bank investments taken out by the previous administration. All of the debts associated with those investments were either repaid, sold for auction, or written off during the last financial year. Just to draw out a couple of points from the report, Mr. Mayor. First of all, paragraph 5.1 and 5.2. The good news that currently our capital expenditure on both the general fund and the housing revenue account are running below budget. Secondly, in paragraph 5.3, the very positive news that again this year our investment income is on track to land better than budget at the end of the year, as it did last year. I'd also like to refer councillors to paragraph 5.5 in Appendix A, which shows that the council has continued to pay down its debt. During the 6 months, our existing debts were reduced by 1.847 million, and no new loans were taken out. In fact, no new loans have been taken out during this administration's tenure, apart from the financially beneficial one-off debt subsidy swap that we made in respect of the housing revenue account in March 2012. One of the things that we've seen over the last year or so is that our cash flow has been improving as a result of the business rate localisation arrangements and the technical way in which they work in terms of our income and outgoing. And what that has meant is that we've had a little more money to invest than previously. We've also looked to effect a gradual shift away from the use of our instant access accounts, which typically pay less than 1%, towards slightly more use of some fixed term investments, which don't pay a king's ransom but do pay a little more. Going forward, we're looking at developing our future investment strategy to look at for the next year and beyond as one of our sort of big ticket items that we discussed in connection with the medium-term financial plan previously. So, Mr. Mayor, that's all there is to say, really. I'd like to move the recommendation 7.1 that we note the report. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to second the report and
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Mayor, that much as it's pleasing to note that Councillor Cook and the officers have resolved the outstanding back issues, I thought it was a very pleasing way of marking the time. It's like birthdays, Christmases, and New Year's, or whatever, and I should just thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Cook, do you wish to say anything?
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. I'll formally move.
I put the recommendation to the 7.1, those in favour, please say. That is carried, Thank you. The next item is withdrawn, and we now move to agenda item number 10, credit to pay, events to move.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could just first of all point out one small typographical error in the report. This is in paragraph 2.12. In particular, the table there, which indicates that the hourly rate equivalent for second-year apprentices under the draft apprentice red book arrangements is from £5.19 to £6.70. In fact, that could read from £5.90 to £6.97. Effectively, this Mr. Mayor's background, it doesn't materially affect the recommendations or the cost of the proposal in this paper in any way. I should mention that in case there was any confusion there. Mr. Mayor, on the 1st of April 2013, we introduced the living wage at this authority, and since then we've ensured a fair day's pay for a fair day's work for all of our employees, and over time we've extended that also to those that provide subcontract services to us. We were accredited by the Living Wage Foundation in March this year. Now, the Living Wage Foundation does encourage accredited employers to pay the living wage, which is currently £7.85 an hour outside London, to apprentices, but this is not a requirement. It's something that they suggest that employers do where it's affordable. Now, Ipswich Borough Council today, we pay the national apprentice rates, and these are set out in paragraph 2.4 in the report. Currently we have 21 apprentice posts at the council, but not all of these are filled. Those that are filled, certainly we find, make a very positive contribution indeed to the services that are offered by this council to the public of Ipswich. Now, our aim is that all apprentices should, in time, leave their apprenticeship time with one of three things of value: either a job at Ipswich Borough Council, a job with another employer, or as a minimum an NVQ qualification that enables them to take forward their career and improve their future job prospects. What we would like to do is to be able to fill all of the posts so that more young people can benefit from the scheme that we have here. Now, one of the ways in which we can do that, obviously, is to increase the pay level to make it more attractive than it is today. This is something that was first floated in the Council's medium-term financial plan 2014-2015, which we adopted earlier this year. Now, having looked into this, Mr. Mayor, I'm afraid we can't afford to put all apprentices directly onto the living wage. We can afford to go part way towards that and increase pay and help to fill those posts over time. So our proposal is set out effectively in the table at 216, and what this is saying is that for those apprentices who are in their first year, or those who are in their second year, aged 18 to 20, would receive 40% above the relevant national minimum wage, in other words, £3.82. And that those who are aged 21 or more and who are in their second year of their apprenticeship, or those who are in their third year, would receive the higher rate living wage, which is £7.85. Now, The cost of general fund and the HRA is set out section 9.1, and you'll see that in the first year it's 50k for the general fund, 14k for the housing revenue account. I think you'll agree that in the context of our £20 million staffing budget, these are relatively modest sums, and I think would be money well spent. We have undertaken some union consultations, and the response that we received from Unison attached to Appendix A, and if you've read it, I think you'll agree that it's going to be positive in terms of what we're trying to do here. That's all I'd like to say for the moment. Is the main recommendations are at 13.1 and 13.2.
Councillor Grant also seconded this proposal, and they have to second it. I think the pension is a brilliant idea. I started my working career on the YTS, which you got paid hardly anything, and I certainly didn't get any qualifications. So yeah, I'm pleased with this.
Thank you.
I'd actually like to submit something and move to the house, please.
I'll second it, don't mind.
We understand the amendment in full at the moment, Mr. Mayor, but take advice perhaps from you and the Deputy Monitoring Officer as to how we proceed in this case. I think we need to understand what the amendment is before we can say whether we accept it or not.
Shall I just speak then? Yes. I think it's English, so all I can do is read it out and hopefully.
Mr. Mayor, I don't accept it.
Okay, thanks very much. So I'll carry on, thank you. Okay, we appreciate how important apprenticeships are, and in fact, under this government, they are an all-time high, having doubled. Real quality has been put back into apprenticeships, reversing what the last government did so wrong, including scrapping labourers and banking courses. Why fix something that's not broke? Other companies seem to manage very well to attract apprentices on those wages. Apprentices cost money, especially in the first year. The cost to companies can be very challenging. This is the whole point of keeping the wage low, so the business is filled and losses can be kept to a minimum whilst upskilling our people across the nation. A lot of them would not accept paying a normal-sized bill. But we agree that our current first-year apprentices being paid £2.73 per hour, even taking into account how much time and money they cost, could be improved. But only if the increase is not detrimental to the numbers of apprentices being taken on and that there will be no reduction. The proposal to increase it to the national minimum wage for under 18-year-olds is acceptable to this group. However, for subsequent years is a different story. To propose that the hourly rate be increased by 40% above the national minimum wage is to totally disrespect taxpayers' money. And Councillor Cook saying if it can be afforded, that might be in his opinion, that might not be the residents' opinion or our opinion. And we think it gives out the wrong message for the many businesses who have only recently felt that they can take on apprentice, as well as skew the pay up the chain of experience and training. And in fact, this very point is noted in 5.3 in the first bullet point. Furthermore, if this part of the proposal was to be taken out, it would make a saving of 24,000, 23 of which is from the HRA, thereby leaving the total spend down to £40,000 instead of the 64. We feel this is still generous and is a good solution, meaning our workers will all be on the minimum wage, irrespective of the fact that they are apprentices. I would also like to ask, with regards to 2.5, why we have failed to secure people for positions. I do not accept it's the wage. I know plenty of apprentices who would love to do jobs and don't have that opportunity. And so what are we doing? Have we been proactive? Have we outreach? Have we spoken directly to schools and have we engaged with the job centre? So I leave that to
I was over it like to see it later, I think.
I'm a bit surprised the first council to speak after the motion has been read out. So I'll be the first council to say I don't agree with the proposed amendments to the motion. I actually agree with the original motion by Councillor Cook. Doesn't happen very often. Having an apprenticeship scheme is a wonderful thing. The increases in pay that are proposed by the council, Councillor Cook mentioned, I think, the word affordable. Yes, of course they are affordable, but one also has to be recognised that in any apprenticeship scheme there is a discount of what the eventual full-time rate would be. That's to allow for the fact that the apprentice, whilst working, is also learning. That's the whole purpose of the apprenticeship scheme, the wonderful thing it is. From what I understand, one of the issues here is just about giving people a decent amount of money to earn. It's also about retention. Councillor Chenchi in her amendment talks about these pay rates. I can't remember exactly what she said. I think she said no. Well, yes, in the first year no, but frankly they're all no. They're not terribly competitive. They're more competitive following Councillor Cook's motion. And I would agree with that. I think that offering, if I understand it right, I must say because I'm not the expert in the only one confused. If we end up with a pay of £6.50 for a 21-year-old who may have done 3 years' work, that's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. And frankly, I wouldn't be any surprise if I was running a plumbing or electrician's firm around here. I would keep those apprentices that have done 2 years at the borough and say, come and work for me, I'll give you £10,000 an hour. So I think actually in the real world, in the competitive world, in the economic world, the council could even go further than Councillor Cook had suggested, but I'll take your thoughts about affordability. I would also say though, this isn't a criticism of the council, it's a criticism of these types of papers, full stop. Can we get away from, well, I think nationally we should get away from, talking about people's pay rates in terms of how old they are? I don't care whether a plumber is 18 years old, if they are fully qualified, they should be paid the same rate as somebody else. Age has nothing to do with capability. And personally, this is a very personal view, I don't think there's any reason to be in this paper. That's not to say I'm not going to support the paper, and that's not to say that we wouldn't agree with it or whether we can vote the Constitution.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think what would have been more helpful would be sort of a more fully formed proposal here, which had, tabulated in some way what the rates would be for different apprentices at different ages, at different stages of their time with the council. And what we've got here is something that just sort of puts forward one figure for those who are in their first year without making any reference to the age. What if their age?
Point of order, I specifically said take it to put my one, it's still out there. Please listen, please.
I'm not sure which standing order I'm referencing. Mr. Mayor, I mean, there are considerations here, such as the law. I mean, it is the case, rightly or wrongly, the national minimum wage debate does vary according to your age, and I'm not clear at the moment whether Councillor Gentry's proposal that put here today actually could be in conflict with the national minimum wage, depending on the age of the apprentice. I'm also not clear how much money this would actually save compared with the figures that we've got in 9.1. I think that would have been useful information to have had a meaningful debate on this. And, I think it's just disappointing in terms of the way it's been presented. It may be that Councillor Phillips, as he speaks to them, it might be able to clarify the point and perhaps set out what the proposal is in a bit more detail. That's what I'm hoping for.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think Councillor Kent said that the saving is 4,000. Many young people appreciate the job regardless of how much it is paid. Not to live in their parents. They don't face the same commitments. And they don't face the same financial commitments that older people do. If we're saying there's a deficiency in sort of take up of apprenticeships, and the council can't mention a statement, what can we do as a council to sort of improve recruitment and advertising for jobs within the council for young people? On page 602, there is a table, it's 9.1, it's a little bit unclear what the implications are on council tax and council tenant rents would be. There's various figures of attended there, it's not really clear. What the impact on council tax and council rents would be, so that could be clarified because ultimately we are the council, we are paid by council taxpayers, business rents, and council tenants. They pay us for everything we do. And we just need to be careful about what the deals we are offering to staff and avoid the unions thinking they can sit away what they want, dictating to us what they want, and they feel that we as a council would be a walkover. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We hear a lot from Conservative ministers about the government's long-term economic plan, but we very rarely tell us exactly what the long-term economic plan. But here tonight, Mr. Mayor, we've had it summed up in a nutshell by two Conservative councillors. The government's long-term economic plan is pay freezes and tax increases for the low paid and tax cuts for the highest paid. And we had it amplified even more by Councillor Phillips, which is that young people should be grateful for any job they're given, and they should, presumably work for nothing. They should be so grateful to get a job. That is why this government's economic plan is failing. It's why this government is borrowing more this year than it borrowed last year, because wage levels are being held down. It's exactly the attitude that we've heard here today, and we want nothing to do with it. That's why we brought in the living wage for our own staff. That's why we become living wage accredited, by getting anybody who wants to have a contract with the council to pay their staff the living wage. That's even having a bigger benefit than we thought, because I heard only yesterday that our cleaners are going to get paid the living wage from this month, not even April. So we managed to push their employers to even better than they were going to do anyway. But if you want an example, Mr. Mayor, exactly what the Tories are about, exactly what this government about, this is what this amendment is, and it says everything about the Tories and everything about David Cameron. He's strong against the weak, and he's weak against the strong.
No, I don't think it's the backbenchers. I'd like to say, well, they haven't said a word for many a month now, like I've noticed. It's a cheer. A few points. I don't think Council Cook listened to a word I said. I specifically gave 24,000 saving, 23 from the HRA, 1,000. I keep my messages nice and short and simple and bullet pointed, so that I don't confuse anybody. You can hear what I say, and it's recorded quite easily. So I don't often say a lot, and if I'm not even going to be listened to on the very quick voice that I make when I stand up, then that's just disgraceful. So I expected this not to be passed anyway. I'm speaking now. What
my problem with the amendment as put was it was not clear to me exactly what the arrangements were for apprenticeship in their second or subsequent years, how it would vary according to their age. It was not explained. All that's provided here is the initial figure. I'm not clear whether this proposal actually cuts the current rate of pay for apprentices as set out at 2.4 in some instances. I'm not sure whether it's a proposal to pay less than the national minimum wage. We just need to understand what it is, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I did spell it out. I said that the table is the minimum wage 2.11. We would increase the first year only and keep the status quo on the other 2 years. I've made that very, very clear. I speak English. I don't understand this, but anyway, let's go back. We're talking about long-term economic plan, data plan, slate of plan. This is what the leader of the council always does. Doesn't talk about what we're actually talking about, doesn't answer the questions properly that we're asked, always taking the opportunity to make some comment. The point is, apprenticeships are working. They have doubled. Businesses are telling me, schools are telling me, the higher education is telling me how brilliant apprenticeships are now, and that's because it's set just at the right tone. My husband runs a plumbing company. He can take apprentices up now that he's never done before because he couldn't afford them. They cause leaks, they cause a lot of money, they cause a lot of time. This is the point. And if you're trying to take people away from businesses in the town who do want to take apprenticeships, well, it's for us here in Ipswich Borough, but it will go down everywhere else in Ipswich. This is very short-sighted, and all the mockery, I have some really valid points to make. But I'm going to leave it there because it was destined that this is never going to be agreed by everybody, but we're being authentic and we're saying what we really feel.
Those in favour of the amendments that are put before 16, those in favour of the law. Those against. Now we go back to the original agenda item. Anybody, any comments to make on the Councillor Cook, do you have any comments to make?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think I have much more to add. I mean, I think this is a balanced proposal in terms of the consultation with youth. If everyone likes to pay less tax, you just always want to pay to go up, and we have to put our pay to the same degree that the youth would like in this proposal. But it is something that strikes the right balance between filling apprentice posts, giving young people opportunities for jobs and training, delivering good services to the people who switch. And I would sort of commend the recommendations to Council, Mr. Mayor, 13.1 and 13.2. Thank you.
Those in favour
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fairly straightforward forward report is something out we propose table of meetings for the next school year, and hopefully this will give Councillor Kenji some confidence that I'm still got my eyes.
Now move to agenda item number 12. I will not move this report and ask the Deputy Military Officer
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, the partnership agreement for the shared revenues and benefits partnership was amended and it was taken to executive recently. The reason that we're now seeking authority for the monitoring officer to amend the constitution is that that agreement is set out in the council's constitution and it's only council that can amend the constitution. So I therefore request the recommendation shown on page 6 of 1.
anybody who says
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate that all committee members are very happy for Councillor Hayes on the Suffolk to remain the chair of Shared Revenue Partnership and I fully support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Modek has said and just reiterate what a good job that I think that Councillor Haley has done on the Shared Revenues Partnership Committee. More than happy for him to carry on as chair. I did serve on the SRP committee for a couple of years and well aware of the work that Councillor Haley did. I'm no longer on the SRP as of this year, and I'm sure Councillor Chenchi will be very happy that I'm coming back.
So at the last council meeting, the council agreed that we would undertake an improvement process for the independent police committee. That has been undertaken, and it's now put to council that approved the appointment that Alan Hanson for a period of 4 years and to set out in page 65. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to this report as the chair of the audit committee. There is a danger when you read down the report to find that when you find that Mr. Hanson was the only applicant for this post, that it might be thought he's Hobson's choice. I said that's far from the case. He is universally respected by members of the audit committee on both sides of the council. He's served a 4-year term, and he always challenges things which need challenging. I could add a bit of clarification that we obviously share an internal audit function with Waverley and Suffolk Coastal. Neither of those councils have actually had anybody in post as an independent member of the audit committee for the last 4 years. So Mr. Hanson is a very rare case, but one who is appreciated by the audit committee. Thank you.
Those in favour of the recommendation, now move to agenda item number 14.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you might admit that whilst it's not strictly to do with item 14, I'm sure members would like to offer the chaplain a round of applause. It's very rare that the chaplain stays for the whole of the meeting.